Let's pay a visit to Mark's True Crime Corner.
This is not a good neighborhood. I'm scared.
Now, here's your host, Mark Thompson.
Well, thank you, everyone. And how about it for Courtney, my other half?
Yes, thank you for having me.
We've had quite the weekend. To today, what do you have for us?
Oh, my God. It's just the most insane case that's happening right now with Mica Miller. And I'm not sure if anybody listening or watching is familiar with this case, but I'm going to do my best to do it in 10 minutes. But it is ongoing. And I have a couple videos. Now, I'll just preface this with I edited the videos down. So if you're looking for any of the entire videos, they're about 3 minutes long. You can find those online. But Mica Miller was found dead on April 27th this year in a national park. And it is alleged, and the coroner and the police have said that she killed herself. But a lot of people are very suspicious about this murder, or this death. So Mica Miller is featured if you're watching. You can see some visuals of her. She was a very religious woman. She grew up in the church. She grew up specifically going to a church called Solid Rock. That is, in fact, where she met her husband. And her husband is the person alleged of killing Mica Miller. That photo is actually her baptism into a new church. She had left the church close to the end of March because of the issues that she was having with her husband. So again, thank you. The next visual is John Paul. John Paul Miller is her husband. They met when she was 14 and he started grooming her in the church. She was part of the youth, the youth group. Now, John Paul at the time had a son who was 13. So he had a child when he was 16. That child, Logan, was 13 when he started grooming Mica in the youth group within the church. And the church is called Solid Rock. And so they start a relationship. If you go to the next visual, you'll see pictures of the couple. This is the couple. He's about 14 years older than her. So when she was 14, he was close to 30. So they married actually when they were 24, but if you go down, he actually started, really his father was part of the issue with John Paul becoming this pastor who in fact was really taking advantage of his influence and power within the church. So John Paul's father is Reginald Wayne. He calls himself Dr. Miller. Says that he has a doctorate in, I think it's like theology or religious studies.
That's another doctorate in BS.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But this man is just awful. He started several academies, Grand Strand, which then became Cathedral Bible College. These were all alleged colleges or scholastic studies that mostly international students would come to study theology and religious and different sort of religious studies. But in fact, he was forcing these international students into work study programs where sometimes they would work 60 to 80 hours a week for virtually no pay, which is illegal. Someone on a student visa cannot work more than 20 hours a week. He was very much underpaying them. But even worse than all of that was the sexual assault allegations. And he, in fact, was arrested in a national park because he liked to take his son and his children to national parks. He was arrested in a national park soliciting an undercover officer for sex, a male undercover officer for sex. Now, he was married with several children, but he would conduct these sort of salacious, illegal relationships on the side. And he traveled internationally as well in pursuit of these relationships outside of his marriage.
Wow. And when did these revelations come to evidence? I mean,
well, now that
attention,
that's an interesting piece because I've shown at the top, if you're looking at it, this quote church end quote started as an academy, a religious academy, and it's gone through several iterations and evolutions. So to your point, if anybody in South Carolina, which is currently where the church is in Myrtle Beach, had done any investigative work on John Paul, they would have found Reginald Wayne Miller. And they would have seen the grift that was happening and the corruption that was happening. So it's only come into light recently, as I know it, with the murder of Mica or with the death of Mica Miller, that in fact they're connecting Reginald Wayne with what's happening with John Paul. But this church has existed for some time in different forms. So if you go to the next visual, this is the church. So this is Solid Rock. So currently it's called Solid Rock at Market Common. They renamed the church actually when John Paul married Mica because he had been having an affair with Mica on his first wife, behind the back of his first wife, among many other affairs. And
this guy was really getting around men, women, affairs.
That he had, yes. And so in 2015, the church was called Solid Rock, but they changed it to Solid Rock at Market Common. And I have a video of some of his, one of his sermons, I'll just say, to give you a sense of the kind of rhetoric that he was proselytizing. So.
Okay, so this is a video.
It's always about what I'm preaching about. God is so to do that every single time. One day I'm going to preach about getting rich, strong, healthy, and finding a hot wife that loves Jesus. That's what I'm going to
do. So he's
upfront about it.
Yeah, I mean, he really was talking to the parishioners about what was important in life. But oftentimes he was airing his grievances. I mean, he was very public about his relationship with Mica. He was very derogatory toward women. He was very misogynistic. And yet there was some kind of award they won every year in the past 4 years for like greatest congregation in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yeah. So if you go to the next visual, I'm bringing up this visual because Mica was actually married at 18, and John Paul, her future husband, the man accused of, if not killing her, driving her to kill herself, officiated. But she was 18. So since the age of 14, this woman has either been groomed or in really bad relationships. And so you can see Mica there. She's 18. That's her first husband, Jeremy. And behind them is John Paul. He's the officiant. And if you go to the next visual, you can see an even closer image of Mica at 18 marrying her first husband. They separate when she's 21. And so, and then she continues to have an affair with John Paul, who's married to his first wife. Mica files for divorce from Jeremy on the same exact day that John Paul files for divorce from his first wife.
No,
Her name is Allison. Yeah. So if you go to the next visual, so here's the timeline. So all of that is the backstory of this relationship. And Mica files for divorce from John Paul in October of last year. Now, it is alleged that Mica had some mental health issues. Also that John Paul has some mental health issues. But there were definitely issues within the relationship and the marriage for years. But
so it's saying, for those who, I mean, I'm just seeing it now for the first time also. So she files for divorce. Then in February, some months later, October is when she filed for divorce. Mica's involuntarily hospitalized by John Paul. Her car and the phone are taken.
Yeah.
Then the divorce case is dismissed. Mm-hmm. That's because
it's corrupt. The judge is in collusion with John Paul and the church. And so that is dismissed. He files for separation. But what's important about John Paul taking her car while she was involuntarily hospitalized by him is that she had been collecting information to prove her case in the divorce. And he was taking all of that from her phone and her car. He took over her Facebook account and started pretending that he was Mica on the Facebook. He was responding to people on her phone as if he was Mica. He was erasing years of information that she had collected about the abuse that she was suffering at the hands of John Paul.
Jeez.
Yep. And that comes into what it is important then and even important now, because guess who has all of her belongings after her death? John Paul. And guess who is ruining, destroying evidence to the severe harm and abuse that he caused to her is John Paul. There are two incidences in March. One of the video that I'll show you, but he's stalking her. He's taking the air out of her tires. He has devices that follow her car. What is it? Tracking devices he's put inside of her car so he knows where she is. He's following her to different places and harassing her. So
there's another she post to Facebook about the abusive relationship, right?
Yeah, so then she has to start a new Facebook page.
In March, that happens.
In March,
so,
yeah.
Okay.
And then she starts to post from the new Facebook page because he has the old Facebook page. He actually, and I have a video, this will be the next video we show. He goes to a place where she's getting her tires fixed and he threatens her and he says, I'm going to put a picture up on your Facebook page. So he goes to the Facebook page that he stole while she was in the hospital and posts a topless picture of his wife.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see the video
So
real quick if we
you go
can,
to the
Tony.
video.
And we got to wrap up. Sorry. This is when he's harassing her in March of.
Hey.
Huh?
Walk away.
I'll show you the pictures.
Do you want to go to jail?
They'll be on Facebook in a few hours.
Alrighty, you'll be in jail in a few hours.
Yeah.
Walk away.
So,
Was he in jail in a few hours for harassment or?
Nope. He never went to jail. Nothing.
So then there's a second video a video that she puts up on Facebook, right?
Yeah,
That's what
there
I was
was
seeing
several,
on your timeline.
Yeah, there's several videos of her that she put up on Facebook, very much telling people that she was alive. Basically, is what she was saying, because she had not been communicating with many people, and also that she started to speak out against the abuses that were being, that she was suffering from.
So then it's a short time after that that life really gets tough.
So
Go
then
ahead.
on April 27th, she leaves her house. There's a quick, if you go down a couple visuals, she leaves her house at about 11:30 a.m. She's actually dressed for work. And when she leaves the house, she drives to a pawn shop. And at the pawn shop, she buys a gun.
Wow.
And then after buying the gun, they can follow her car driving north toward a state park. Remember, I mentioned at the beginning of this that the father and her husband, John Paul, the father, Reginald Wayne, the family often went to state parks. So you can see her, if you're watching, that she buys the weapon, she goes into the pawn shop. The next visual is of her new car, since he took her old car, driving toward the state park. She goes in to get gas. So I'm showing you this because it's very much a timeline of then what happens. And then she arrives at the park. She calls 911 to provide her location at the park. Now, this is audio of that, and it's a very shortened version because I did not want to play the entire audio piece.
Yeah, the entire audio piece is a little too intense, so we've kind of cleaned it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Find my phone is on. I just did my location.
Okay, I'm showing at the Lumber River State Park.
Yeah, that's where I am.
So that is Mica. She's on the phone with 911. She's making sure that they can find her phone because she's
worried that he's following her there?
She wants her family to be able to find her body. Yeah, and that is why she calls 911.
So did she take her then? I'm sorry, let me just skip ahead. What happens? She's then her body is found.
Her body is found, and her body is found. She tells a 911 officer she's going to take her own life. They send officers to the park. They find the body. There's actually an audio witness, Johnny Jacobs. He hears her crying. He hears the gunshot. He does not see any of it. But they, in fact, also find her car. There's a visual on the left-hand side of her car with the newly bought gun case and some other things that she had brought with her.
So she did take her own life then?
She did. I mean, she did.
She was harassed essentially
driven
to that.
Yes. Now, some people are alleging other things happened, but it's very clear if you look at the evidence from the visuals that I was just showing and like the timeline, she very much bought a gun and then called 911 and said that she was going to do this herself. Some people say that she called in duress. It's also partially why I played that audio, but it in fact looks like she took her own life.
So where does this sit now, this case?
So the coroner and the police have said that she took her own life, and it stands there. The family just filed a lawsuit against John Paul because they want her estate and they want her things. So he has taken all of her computer, her phone, her car, any evidence to the fact of, again, that abuse that was being conducted against her by John Paul, he has taken all of that evidence. So
there is likely then going to be no charge brought against this guy.
It looks like there would only be a civil lawsuit. Yeah.
He's going to get back to, Calvin says wrongful death lawsuit. Maybe. Yeah.
He also would not let the family see the body unless they signed off on a cremation. So he says that he's been back to see the body 4 times in a sermon that he holds, although now he's no longer with the church. But he has, in fact, never let the family see the body after her death.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what a dirtball this guy is. I mean, there's no words.
He had a memorial service on the same date and same time as the family had their memorial service in different states. Yeah. And even there, in the obituary he writes, he talks about himself, like what a great pastor he is and how funny he is. I mean, it's a delusion and a sickness beyond what you could imagine. So we can only hope that Mica and her family have justice. Yeah.
Wow, that is sad. It's really a story of just being harassed and pushed and abused. From very early age.
From very early age.
And then how old was she?
She was, I think she was 29, 28, 29.
Gosh.
Mm-hmm. Or 30. She was very young. Yeah. So.
That's terrible.
I know, it's awful. It really is an awful story. It's happening now. So if you want more information
that's
on
obviously,
story,
you always try to bring us stuff that is, significant for a reason. And I guess it's the contemporary nature of this is what makes it significant.
Yeah.
Very sad. Courtney, thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
I appreciate you telling a story that is hard to tell. But
yeah, it is.
Yeah. That's True Crime Corner for today.
True Crime Corner, only on the Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell, you'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.